All right, welcome everyone. Here we are, another designer show with my good friend Diane Gilson. Diane, welcome to the show today.
Hey there, Dan.
How you
And
doing?
everybody always says my good friend, but we really are good friends.
Yeah, we
And,
go way we do go way back. Yeah, back to
exactly.
we met each other online a long time. What has that been? 15 years ago now, or I don't. It's
Oh,
been
at least,
yeah. We
yeah.
worked online for 8 years before we met each other. So
In person, yeah.
yeah, that was really cool. Anyway, John's not going to be with us today, so he's decided just sit back and watch. He wants to get educated by what you have to share with him today. So share with all of our guests today. So you guys, please ask questions as we get moving here. But first, we got to do the commercial. So those of you on the call, you're well aware that I do chief architect stuff. And so I just want to mention again our Mastering Chief Architect course, which is going on right now. It is a 15-week course that we'll be coming up to our third week now. I don't shut off the registration for these shows, guys, so you can join these at any time. And if you've missed a few classes already, you can go back and watch the recordings that we do. So these courses are evergreen. You can come back and learn from them anytime. You can come back and look up things anytime you want. So if you're stuck on something, you come back to the class, you get fast forward to that part of the video where we time code things, and you can get right to that topic and just continue on. So we're covering a ton of information. I just wanted to share with you a little bit about what our last class was about. Last class, we covered the Mastering Chief Architect 2D CAD tools. We got quite a ways through that. I still haven't finished the first class, which I'll be coming into. So it's a 15 session course with 5 Zoom meetings. So our first Zoom meeting will be coming up after our third class, where you'll have a chance to ask questions and just get those things that have been pestering you forever answered. So what we did in this class, we covered some of the 2D CAD things, where do you use the 2D CAD tools at Chief? I get you thinking about Chief as a CAD program, so we talk about that. I talk about how you use the different CAD tools within the software. We get into explaining a ton of the different icons involved in the software. How do you use all these different edit tools that you see whenever you click on something? And then we talk about some of the functions of that. So covering a ton of information. So love to have you join us in our mastering course. You just go to chiefexpertsacademy.com and click on the homepage. You'll see these 4 boxes, and that's the mastering course going on right now. Plus you can get access to the previous courses that we've done at the beginning of the year. So anyway, thanks for listening. I'm Dan with the Mastering Chief Architect today, I guess. Anyway, Diane, someday we'll have to teach you how to do CAD. It's all about numbers, and you would love the numbers.
And I would love to get into the graphics. That'd be really fun. I'll put that out on the list of when I get retired and things I can do.
In other words, it'll never happen, right? Anyway, so we go way back, and you've been involved. We got involved early. In the early days because we were both internet marketers. We sell things online, and that's how we kind of got to know each other and really enjoyed working with each other. I helped you with some stuff, and you've helped me with some things, and it's just been really fun working through these different things. And I've known you now, and I know that you are a top 100 in the world, right? Yep. QuickBooks advisors.
Exactly. So, and then I was also named the top niche pro advisor in construction. So wow, that was really fun. So.
That is, in case you're wondering, guys, that's kind of a big deal when it comes to working with QuickBooks and understanding what you should be using, how you should be using it in your business. So if you're on the show page right now, then I'll run through this quickly so that Diane she's got a really nice presentation prepared for you guys today. So I don't want to hold her back because she's got a lot of information she wants to cover. But below the video that you would be watching, you'll see some links. One is for a handout. And this is really a cool handout because I just love how you've laid out all of the different costs involved with having employees. And I had that PDF open, but there's 48 different costs you have listed. So guys, go click on that and go put your name and email in and get that sheet. It's got a lot of stuff on it. It'll blow your mind. It's like, I had no idea that there's that many costs involved with an employee. So check that out. And then John's presentation today, you can get the PDF for that, and you can get that anytime. So if you're watching this after the live show today, those links, we'll still put those in there so that you can get to these items and have them available for your company. So check it out. Here's Diane. I mean, she's been doing this a long time. There's some links to her website and to her social media channels. And then, of course, we've got links to our courses at the bottom of that page. So a lot of information there. Don't get distracted and go away. Please listen to what Diane's presentation is all about. So, Diane, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you get going because I know you've got a ton of information to cover today. So why don't we just have at it? And
okay.
There you go.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about discovering the true cost, which most people don't know about their employees, and then also the related profit potential once you know that true cost for each employee labor hour. So we're talking about the hours that people spend doing what you hired them to do. Okay. So first of all, it's kind of fun we're going to be doing a lot of math today. So
quick history on this, Diane. Where did you come up with this whole concept, or not even a concept, but you've created a whole program called the eCPA, Employee Cost
and Pricing Analyzer.
And right. I've seen that software that and you do offer that, so you can get that through Diane's website. Fabulous program for figuring this stuff out. It'll figure out all of those costs involved and give you an actual number of what you're looking for. Maybe if you have time at the end, you could show that quickly. How did you come up with this whole concept of doing this?
Well, when I first got into helping people do job costing, because we're all about job costing here at InfoPlus Accounting. And we were getting the job cost in place. QuickBooks is really great because you can say, I want to assign the gross payroll for employees as well as the payroll taxes and maybe some specific other costs like maybe health insurance. We can assign those out into different jobs. And so, I was just really proud of myself. Wow, we're doing job costing. We're helping people get their job costing. And then as I kept looking at the numbers, I'm going, there's a problem here because we got a bunch of other costs. And I'll be showing you about that. There are a lot of other costs that aren't getting assigned to jobs. And that's kind of what we're talking about today.
Right,
and that's what instigated my figuring this all out for different clients. And then ultimately we evolved into a product.
Nice. Yeah. I see you put a ton of work into it. So it's obvious.
Okay, great.
All right.
So the first thing is that I just want you to imagine, maybe because you don't know the exact cost for employees and maybe you're underbilling. Okay, so I've got a couple of examples here and pretty high level. So let's say that your employees, of course, when you hire an employee, they're not working the 2,080 hours per year. Okay. Their holiday, vacation, sick time, things like that. And so let's say we bump their hours down to about 1,900 per year. Okay. And then let's say you're undercharging by just $5 an hour because you don't really know what you should be billing them out at. And so look, that would be an annual loss per employee of $9,500.
Bam.
That's right out of your pocket. Okay.
Yeah.
And now let's multiply it by the number of employees that you might have, 5. Okay. So for a year, let's say you got 5 employees, that's 47,500. Okay. You'd rather have that in your bank account, I would imagine. Yep. If you have even more employees, like 7, we give you that range. And then think about what happens over 5 years. Now we're talking some real money that I'll bet you'd rather have in your pocket.
If you're on the call, whether you have employees or not, this is something you should know about because you might have employees someday, or you might want to apply this to your own situation as a self-employed person. So designers, everybody else, this is really great information. So pay attention.
Okay, thanks, Dan. On our next screen, we're going to do another example, but in this case, sometimes there are different kinds of companies, okay, and they have different kinds of time off benefits, and so on. So let's say in this company, we only have 1,750 hours of production time. And let's say that, boy, they're really off in this company by $12 an hour, because again, they're not checking everything out. And that's going to turn into $21,000 per employee of loss of dollars that you aren't billing out. And of course, depending on how many employees, this is another example, but for a bigger company, maybe with engineers and that type of thing working for them. So this turns into some real money. And so I put down at the bottom, what would your shareholders or your board members say?
I was just going to say that's a triple bam. That's a mega whammy. And, yeah, why do companies go out of business? And they don't even know. There could be one of the reasons.
Right. So what we're going to do, I'll just run through overview of what we're going to cover today. I just kind of wanted to do a little shocker on the front end. Okay. A little teaser like they do in the TV shows. Okay. So we're going to just talking about today the clear, truthful measurement of your labor costs, how that can impact your estimating and your markups, how that information is going to help you be more accurate, enhanced labor processes and efficiencies. So once you know those numbers, they can help you enhance what's going on, and so that you can be more efficient. And then how can you maximize your current and your potential team that you have on board. So those little icons you'll see at the top of the slides. So it kind of ties together which one of those areas we're talking about. We'll go through them in order, of course. So when you can't see your actual employee costs in your job cost reports, that becomes a problem, as you've seen right on the front end. So unfortunately, most job costing systems aren't set up to compute and assign your labor burden cost to job cost reports. So that concept of burden is all these extra costs. And we'll be showing more math on that here in a minute or two. But most of the job costing systems, as I found in QuickBooks, they may be able to get your gross profit out to jobs. They may be able to get your payroll taxes, and then maybe some of the benefits. But there are also lots of other costs, which is, as Dan mentioned in that handout that you can download, there's a whole list of what all those other costs are.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of different ways that people fail in their job costing reports. So like I said, we're all about job costing, and I see things all over the map. Some folks don't assign any cost to jobs. Some people aren't assigning any labor cost to jobs. Some are just assigning gross payroll and payroll taxes, like I found on the front end, or maybe they add in some direct benefits. Maybe they're not including the cost of project management or job supervision. Maybe they think of their job supervision as just company overhead, but really that supervision is a part of getting jobs done. And maybe just a whole boatload of other employee costs aren't getting assigned out to jobs. This leads to the problem of believing that your jobs are more profitable than they really are. So we're going to say, are your job cost reports lying to you? And I'm going to prep you here for, we've got a screen of a lot of information coming up, but I'm going to guide you through this. Okay. So don't get overwhelmed when the screen comes up. So on the left side, and you saw I just punched in a green box. On the left side, what you're seeing is an income statement, but only through gross profit. Okay, this doesn't include all the company overhead and so on. So let's look and see what we've got in here. So we've got comp and benefits, and you'll see that, and this is $1 million company. Using $1 million company as an example makes it easy for you to multiply or divide. If you're a $500,000 company, you could extrapolate from here. If you're a $5 million company, you could extrapolate from here. So in this case, we're showing the comp and benefits at being about 25.5%. Okay. And then we've got other benefits and so on sitting below that. And then we've got other job specific costs, things like your materials, your trades, other job costs, coming to altogether about 47%. And then we have some other indirect costs of production. And that's getting us to a 14.7% gross profit. Now, if that was a net profit, you'd be really happy about that. But in this case, you're not seeing the rest of the profit and loss statement that goes with this. But in this case, this particular company ended up losing money after they pulled out their company overhead, their company operating costs. So the 14.7% is not what we would like to see. Okay. And if you look at the bottom, however, they've got a gross profit target of 28%. So they're only at about half of what they should be. But let's look at those jobs. So if you look across the bottom and the yellow bar, you can see for each job what the gross profit in terms of dollars were and the percentages. So they've got a gross profit target here of about 28%. You'll see that they actually exceeded that. They've got 35.4%, 39%, 30.8% on 3 of those jobs. And the other ones, well, they didn't make a bunch, but looks like they didn't lose money, right? So if we were to look at just those jobs alone, without labor burden dollars, the gross profit would be $275,730 or a 27.6% gross profit. They'd be almost at their target, right close. But we've got a problem because you'll see that hidden cost column that I just displayed with the nice red bar around it. We've got another $139,500 sitting out there that are what we call labor burden costs. These are the costs that come in that you can't immediately assign out to a job. Okay. So let's say that we decide that we're going to allocate this back to jobs in relationship to the compensation. So all of those costs you're seeing in labor burden are actually costs that you have because you have employees. When you put them on your books, you can't really assign them to a specific job. I mean, you can't take a week's worth of gas for somebody and try to figure out, where it's going to go, all the individual jobs. So a lot of those things go into what we call non-job specific. And so those become your labor burden costs that aren't getting assigned out to jobs. So what happens if we go in here and take those labor burden costs and we subtract them out of this quote unquote non-job specific job and we assign them back out into different jobs? Now we're going to get a much different result. And when we look at that bottom line, so you see, I just zeroed that out, assigned it out to jobs. And now look and see what we've got going on over here with the different jobs. So we've got one job that exceeded the target. Isn't that interesting? And those dollars are allocated based on the comp dollars.
Yeah, that's wow. That's
so all of a sudden, job one that we thought, well, at least we didn't lose a lot of money. In fact, we did lose money. Okay. Yeah. Same thing for job 2. We lost money. Job 3, we made 16.7%, way below our target. Job 5, we made 4%. And our miscellaneous small jobs, we've got a decent loss on that, 22,211.
Wow.
So allocating those costs, getting those burden costs out to jobs, up at the top, I said, until you do this step, allocate burden, your job cost reports are kind of lying to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow, that's a big deal.
Okay. Now, of course, this is something you have to figure out for yourself, for your own company. These are just sample numbers that I'm putting in place so you can see, what this kind of impact can be. But I don't believe these are way out of line in terms of labor burden costs that I see in place on a regular basis as I work with clients. Okay, so if you can't see those actual employee costs, you're left guessing as to the true cost. So that first one, you were thinking you were doing well. The second one is more truthful. And of course, employee labor time and cost is typically the riskiest aspect of any job. That's the most, you can well, okay, in this day and age, materials are kind of all over the place, but generally speaking, you can predict what materials are going to be. You get your bids from subs, and the labor, that's where your biggest risk lies. Okay. And the more hours of employee labor that you have on a job, the higher the risk. And when you can't see that employee time and related costs as a job progresses, you're working in the dark. Now, if you've seen any of my other presentations, I use this picture pretty frequently just because it's the best way that I can represent. You're basically walking into a dark room and trying to feel your way along through the process if you don't have your numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So,
the blind leading the blind. No, well, I guess that might be kind of, if you don't know your numbers, you're kind of running blind. It's all a guessing game at that point.
Yep, exactly. So on the flip side, when you can see your actual employee costs in your job cost reports, and as you're moving through this process, once your job is completed, this is when you start to get smarter about your numbers. Okay, you can see exactly how much labor cost is relating to each job. You'll see your accurate gross profit dollars and percentages. So, even if the news is bad news, at least now you're knowledgeable. Now you can fix it. Whereas before, if you couldn't figure out what was going on and scratching your head going, gosh, what happened?
Right.
Now you've got your numbers in front of you to work with, and now you can start to fix things. So another thing is a lot of people do time and materials jobs. Okay, so that means if they're passing their materials cost straight through, really all the profits have to be focused on two things. One is what your labor cost and markup, and then that smaller markup percentage that people may put on the overall job. Okay, so time and materials is especially important that you know exactly how much you're going to make on the labor side of the job.
Right.
Okay, so it means you're going to get more accurate in your future cost and pricing estimates. You're going to be more confident in your pricing. You won't be tempted to, when you're working with a client, they'll go, can't you just shave another, gosh, if we could just get another 5,000 off that job, we'd be able to do it.
Yeah.
All right. When you know your numbers, then you're just going to be able to say, no, sorry.
Yeah, I don't have 5,000 laying around that I can give you.
Right.
Isn't that the truth?
Exactly. And so as I mentioned,
think,
I can fix things. Go ahead.
This labor burden thing, you hear people, add 30% or add blah, blah, blah. So they're guessing. They don't know if that's the right number to add or not. It's probably better than not, at least they're aware of it and they're doing something. So I like.
Well, a lot of people do bury those burden costs that I showed kind of sitting over as another job up in the cost of goods sold. A lot of people just throw those down in the company overhead. Yeah. Okay. And call it, oh, well, that's just overhead. I'm going to throw that in the company overhead. But in fact, they really are parts of getting your jobs done. So they're overestimating their gross profit.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's going to let you start fixing things. Okay. Then you get to, when you make more money, life gets better. Okay. You get to enjoy those benefits of running a more profitable company versus, wondering what happened. Okay. That's the constant puzzlement with a lot of folks, I think, as they get to the end of the year, the middle of the next year, and their accountant says, okay, well, you lost 50 grand last year, and they're just kind of going, what? Okay. So you want to make sure that you get the right profits on your employee labor. So, well,
it's no different than if you have a sub bidding on the electrical and they give you a fixed price. At least you know what you've got to work with, and if you're going to negotiate price, you'll know where you're at. Versus your labor time. I mean, you got a couple factors there. Well, how long is it going to take? How do you estimate that? And then what's the cost of the time going into how long it's going to take? And I mean, one of them you can fix in place by knowing your numbers. The other one, of course, is subjective to the person doing the work, the conditions, is it going to take longer than you estimated or not? I mean, that's another issue, but you got to cover at least the financial part of it here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there are different variables if you're not lining up with your estimates. There are different variables. So my next screen, actually, great lead in, Dan, thanks. Guesstimates about estimates. I made that up.
Well, it's a lot of that going on out there.
Exactly.
They call it a swag or a wag. You know what those mean. The swag is your scientific wild ass guess, and your wag is your plain old wild ass guess. Okay. Guesstimates, and that's the same thing. It's just like, oh man.
So what's going to happen when you're guesstimating is it's going to likely get you to underpricing your jobs.
Yeah.
Okay. And you might even estimate in a way which guarantees that you're going to underprice. And of course, the best case is you're just not going to make as much profit on your job. But the worst case is you're going to lose money on the labor part of the job before you even start the job. So that's kind of depressing to say, oh gosh, we haven't even started the job and we're already losing money. Of course, you don't know that at the time.
Is that the rose-colored glass syndrome?
Could be. Could be.
With the rose-colored glasses on, everything looks fine, and so you just go ahead and say, yeah, we can do it quicker than that, and we'll figure out a way to do it for less.
Right. Well, there's the rose-colored glasses on how long is it going to take to do something.
Yeah.
Okay, but then there's the just not even starting with the right numbers,
right.
And that's kind of what we're talking about here. So let's do the math.
So real quick, anybody on the call here, on the video here, or the stream, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to add them to the add them, and we'll be sure to get those questions answered.
Right. And, I just don't want to come across as all negative here. Sometimes I want to point out, here's what can happen to people when they don't have the right numbers in front of them. You're working hard, you're doing great work and so on. But if you don't have the right numbers to work with, then, things can go sideways without you even realizing it. Yeah. So I'm going to do a little bit of math here. And, you guys don't have to take screenshots and so on. You can get these slides and study them after the fact. So if I run through it more quickly, you're going, what? You've got slides to look at after the fact. Okay. So let's say in this case that you're going to do this estimate and you're going to have a rough carpenter on the job, and you're going to add, you go, yeah, well, okay, we got payroll taxes, so I know how much I'm paying them per hour, paying them $20 or $30, depending on who they are. I'm going to add 15% just so that, I can take their costs into account. And so I'm going to guesstimate that their costs per hour are $23 and $34.50. Now I'm going to add my markup because I want a 25% gross profit margin. So I have to do a markup of 33.3% to hit that 25% gross profit. So I'm going to be charging them out at about $30.59 per hour, or $45.89. So all very reasonable so far, right? Now, if we look at a week, okay, that means we'd be earning $1223.60 and $1835.40. Your profit, as you've figured it out, is $303.60 for a week, or $455.40 for that particular person. So does that all feel reasonable to you, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, let's do the math and say, instead, when we figure out that the burden is 45%, now I'm showing both of them at 45%. Different employees are different, okay? Within the same company, the rates can be different, but just for purposes of comparison here, let's say that their gross, burden is actually 45%. Now, I see burden rates all over the place. When people compute their own, I see them maybe as low as 25 or 30%, but that's really unusual. I've seen them as high as 110%, and that's unusual. That's both ends of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. Generally, burdens run between 45 and 65%. when people sit down and really do the math. Okay. So in this case, I'll just say the burden's 45%. We turn around and compute their hourly cost at being $29 an hour. We add our 25% gross profit. Now we get them up to a charge of $38.57 and $57.86 per hour. And the billing for 40 hours is computed there for you. And the profit is $382.80 and $574.20. So let's see what the difference is. That's a 26% difference. Okay. If you look at 1,900 hours, okay, there's 37.62 and 56.43. Now those numbers aren't quite as big as what we showed on those opening slides, but everybody has to figure this out for themselves.
Right.
Okay. But that's 26% difference. Okay. If you lay in your proper cost and then do your markup on top of that the way that you should. Okay. So what happens is when you start doing these kinds of calculations, your cost and pricing estimates are going to become more accurate and your job's more profitable. So if you look on the left and said, well, my current labor profits are here, and now I add 26%, okay, you're going to be a lot more confident when you present your estimates to clients. We mentioned not being tempted to cut your prices. You'll be able to find and fix labor variance issues. Okay, for instance, time or resource assignments. We'll talk about that briefly here, but you get all of those benefits of running that better company. Okay. So a lot of people saying, gosh, I'm just working longer, working harder. I'm still not earning what I should be earning. Okay. So it could be sitting here.
Yeah. Been there, done
that.
Okay. Oh.
I saw a company, just as an aside, I was working with a client and they had their dumpster company was called Been There, Done That.
Oh, cute.
I thought it was cute too. Okay, let's talk about lost and wasted time. Okay, so now once you start learning what your people are costing you, now you can start working on that lost and wasted time. And so here, this is one of the examples and one of the tools that's in the product that Dan talked about that we do offer. We have a lost and wasted time area. So here's an example of maybe failing to plan ahead. I don't know if you guys have ever had any of the people working for you that didn't plan ahead appropriately.
No comment.
or yourself. Okay. So now it's time for that extra trip to the store or back to work. You got to go pick something up. Forgot something. So let's say it's travel time and that's costing us $35 an hour for an hour. And then at the store, we got to go through and find the right thing and we got to get it checked out. So that's going to run us another $10.50. Total hours and cost of labor is $45.50. That's if one employee goes to the store.
Uh-huh.
Maybe two of them have to go to confer about the right thing. Okay. But there's a total cost of that extra trip. And so now you have to ask yourself, can of paint, box of screws, or plastic sheeting, what did it really cost you?
Yeah.
Okay. So the box of $1.50 screws cost you the screws at $1.50 plus $45.50. Okay. So when you put a proper monetary value on employee time, it does create an emphasis on what's the best use of my time or of their time. Okay. So time and cost measurement starts to raise productivity consciousness. Okay. So if, you're not thinking, well, he's only costing me $18 an hour or $20 or $21 an hour. And oh yeah, okay, that's not that much. But when you start figuring out what they really cost you, then that starts raising everybody's consciousness. Another example I went through, this was something that when my home was being built, we had a situation where something I had asked to be done, I said, I just want one sink in the vanity rather than two. I'd rather have the counter space. Well, it was almost like a comedy of errors. It went on and on and on. I mean, I noticed it right up front, but in fact, they the building company didn't fix it until after all the plumbing had been installed, the sinks were there, the mirrors were in, the towel racks were up, and they had to come back in and just totally disassemble pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, I didn't have to pay anything more for that, but I kind of thought, gosh, do these people really have their act together? So, that, I'm sure that cost them a minimum of, $400 to $500. Okay. Sat down and figured it out. So now we're going to go on from errors and rework into something new. So I want to ask you a question about overtime. So I would like you guys to put an answer in the chat pane. Okay. So how many of you who have employees pretty much forbid overtime or say, no, we're going to keep our overtime to almost nothing? Okay. So Dan, I'm going to have you watch the screen and let us know.
Yeah. So you guys, let me know if you guys allow overtime or not in your business. Again, depending on who's on the call here. If it's designers like me, it's like, yeah, we always are on overtime. But if you have employees, I'd be curious to know. My experience with that is a lot of companies don't want to do overtime because they think it's going to cost them a lot more money. Right. So let's take a look. Okay. Oh, and I got my little notice here, fill in the numbers for your company for lost and wasted and rework time and so on. John says almost nothing for overtime. Yeah. Keep it to a minimum. So let's just talk about overtime or no overtime. And in this case, this is an extract from our eCPA program that Dan mentioned. And so this is a management summary for a specific employee. And if you look all the way to the bottom after we've adjusted hours and dollars and so on, you'll see that this person is costing us about almost $33 an hour for their production time. Okay. So let's take a look at what happens with overtime. In this case, okay, and you always have to figure it out for yourself. But in this case, our employee actually costs us closer to $30 an hour for overtime and actually about $3 an hour less. Okay. It's something that's always fascinated me because I knew you were getting to this and it's just like, really? And then you look at the numbers and go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Right. It makes sense after you run the numbers. Okay. The reason being is that there are a lot of the overhead costs that aren't incurred for the extra hours. I mean, that's, when I was younger and knew somebody working in an auto plant, they go into heavy overtime at different times and you'd go and the employees liked it because, they could make more money. And then, it would scale back. Yeah. I like Michael's comment here. He said in his previous business, his partner wouldn't do overtime, but he disagreed because if there's more work to do, it's cheaper to pay a good employee overtime than train new employees that you may or may not never need later. I mean, so that's a really good point too, because now you would need more labor. Exactly. And and in some cases they might cost you exactly this, or pretty close to exactly the same, but you've got a known entity, okay, somebody that knows what's going on, or in some cases they even cost you less. And that's, because you don't have, you're not providing them with an additional truck, okay, or whatever, all these other things that load up their regular time. And of course it does minimize that new employee risk. Okay. And it also lets you accommodate changes in your volume. Okay. And you might even be able to bump your volume 5 or 10% without hiring anybody else. Okay. So, and sometimes the employees are happy about the extra dollars. Okay. So you should do this calculation and find this out for your company because it can change your whole outlook about overtime. So, yeah. And that's, you've got to figure it out for yourself. So, here's another thing that can happen with your hidden labor costs is employees get assigned to the wrong tasks when you don't know how much they really
cost. So here we've got an example. We're going to go back and pick on our rough carpenter and finish carpenter. And so let's say that you put the wrong person on the task. You send the finished carpenter and, go, oh, well, yeah, we're not staffed properly. I'm going to put the finished carpenter on some rough carpentry work. And so here's our difference. Okay. A difference of $10 an hour in wage and the burden and so on. So if you look at 40 hours, you just basically lost $191.40 in this particular circumstance. So, something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you know the difference, you can stop the leaks, you can assign the right employees to the right kind of work. The benefits are, of course, you're going to increase your employees' awareness level. Okay. So I don't know, have you ever been working in a company and somebody says, oh, well, I'll just step in, I'll do this other person's job for them. Not their whole job, obviously, but, parts of their jobs that are falling through the cracks. And so, being helpful is not always a good thing. Okay, because you're doing somebody else's job. So what you want to do is coach them to become better at doing fewer activities, but doing them at a higher level of competence. And, then most employees are happier when they understand what lane they're supposed to be in. Okay. Yeah. They're not kind of all over the place. So knowing the dollars helps a lot. And so you want to keep specific job duties in mind when you hire and train, and also when you're hiring somebody new. Okay. So, for business owners, if you can figure out, okay, so, if you're a standalone, just a business owner, typically business owners typically don't have a good way to determine their own cost or value. And so, it's important to put a good value on your time and figure out that one of our friends, Kyle Hunt, in our mastermind group, he's always asking, are you doing $10 an hour, $100 an hour, or $1,000 an hour work?
Oh, that's a great, I love that example that he uses.
Right. So I'm quoting Kyle on that. I'll give him credit on that one.
Yeah. And then, it makes perfect sense. If you're running a company and, you bring in the bacon for that company and you're worth $1,000 an hour, you probably shouldn't be cleaning up trash at the job site.
Exactly. And so one of my clients figured out what his time costs the company per hour, and he realized that his trips to the store, to pick up missing materials and so on, like you said, Dan, picking up trash at the job site, whatever, all these little things that he was filling in and doing that he should have been assigning to lower paid employees, he decided maybe he better quit doing those. Okay. Well, he figured out his time was worth about $200 an hour. So he said, yep, that box of screws just cost me $210 because I went and picked them up. So, okay. So
teach your people to be better note takers every day and get those things lined up for the next day or 2 days from now when you need it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And, if you do have more than one person in your company, this can also help to determine the inter-partner time and costs and so on. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So other team-related applications, just to run through them, you can make objective compensation and benefit decisions. So this is something people puzzle over lots of times. Can I do health insurance or how much? There are other benefits. And when you decide to put some of those things in place, they are long-term. And so if you can get your numbers in place, know how they impact your billing rates and so on, before you make the decisions to make these longer-term impact types of things, you're going to be further ahead. You can also use this information to create objective employee productivity goals. And then you can start measuring results and share that information with employees. And of course, that leads us into employee evaluations. And when you don't have objective measurements, employee evaluations and rewards are really quite often based on impressions and subjective judgment calls. And, maybe just yesterday, Joe did something that just made you really annoyed. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And today it's time to evaluate them. But if you actually had real numbers to look at, that could have a big impact on how people are evaluated and rewarded.
Yeah.
So, and before you hire somebody new, sit down and figure out how much they're going to cost on the front end. Okay. And I'm not against hiring, but you also need to know how much are they truly going to cost the company, and what kinds of return do I need to get on that employee in order to not only pay for them and break even, but come out ahead. And it's just really bad when you hire somebody and 6 months down the road, you're going, oh my God, we just can't afford them.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. So we've in general covered clear, truthful measurement of labor costs. We've talked about doing more accurate estimating and markups, how you can enhance your labor processes and efficiencies, getting the right people to do the right things at the right time, and raising overall level of awareness. And so you can start to maximize your current and potential team.
So, and I know this, when it comes to the team, you're going to have different burden rates for different people, right? So you really need to figure this out for every employee in the company.
Exactly. And sometimes the outcomes are pretty surprising. I can't tell you how many different times that when people have used this analyzer, and maybe the internal financial person puts the numbers together and takes them to the owner, and the owner goes, yeah, something's wrong. Yeah, no, that can't be right. It just can't be right, until they sit down and look at the numbers and go, oh, guess they are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's initially sometimes really met with skepticism, but in fact, you just have to run the numbers for yourself. Every employee is different. Every company is different. Okay.
Yeah. So real quick, let me just show the sheet that people can download. This is really well done sheet that you put together of the different employee burden costs that you can have in your company. And it's really mind-boggling when you think about it. And it's pretty easy to see why, contractors don't want to have employees because there's a lot to keep track of. But in this day and age, if you have employees, you got to know this stuff. So I counted 48 different things on this list, of which, what would you say the averages that people have for an employee, Diane?
Well, just generally speaking, I'm seeing between 45 and 65%, but there are still extremes on either end. So, and in most cases, company owners find out that they're paying their employees, that their employees are costing them a boatload more than the company owner is making.
Typically, I would think that's probably more often.
There's still a lot of advantages to having employees. Okay. I mean, there are some companies that run on trade contractors alone, but there's still a lot of advantages to having employees dealing with control, quality, etc. So, I'm not against having employees. What I am for is knowing what they cost and being able to make an appropriate return. On what they cost you.
I mean, employees are like a product on a shelf. You're going to have a hard cost associated with that hour of labor that you're going to sell for that employee. Mm-hmm. You got to know what that number is. It's not a widget. It's always moving and changing, and insurance rates go up, and taxes go up and down, and mostly up. So. Thanks. Keeping track of that and using those numbers in your estimates can make a big difference.
Right. And keeping your calculations up to date. So part of month-end procedures that we suggest to people when they're using the tool we'll talk about here shortly, is that every month you think about, has anything changed? Did I give somebody a raise? Are they now getting, another week of vacation? Are we going to have to do extra training? And the other thing is, of course, with COVID, are we losing any productivity? Mm-hmm. Am I going to have to kind of ratchet down the their real hours based on them having to do these extra things.
Yeah. So Diane, once you, I think you were going to show people the eCPA.
Yeah, I'm not going to show the eCPA, but I'll just kind of talk about what's included in it.
Okay.
So, the question is whether you think you'd get a really big value from finding out what each of your employees truly costs, and what you should earn for the time they spend on jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so while I'm kind of running through some things about the eCPA, I'd like you to be thinking about it and say, what would that kind of information be worth to you? And, you can put that into the questions or the chat screen and just kind of give us a little bit of feedback. Okay. Again, it depends on if you've got employees. If you don't have any.
Well, Mike says, I was a former solo framer, did fine. When he needed help, he hired another, sub, I guess, and never had employees. So, and I think that happens quite often in this industry. But again, if you do have employees or you're considering them.
Right. Well, if you're a design build firm, okay, and you do have employees, then it's going to make a big difference for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So whoops, I'm hitting the wrong keys backwards. All right, let's go forward. So I do have something called the eCPA Employee Cost and Pricing Analyzer, which Dan was kind enough to mention on the front end. Mm-hmm. And that's the link for you to actually go out and look at the product page. I'm just going to run through what's included with this. And there's a reference sheet where we gather shared cost information so you can assign those shared company costs out to individual employees. We have sample employee data and results so that you can see what it should look like. Gosh, I get certain things I'm going, I don't know if I'm, certain software programs, I don't know if I'm putting the information in here right, because I don't know what it's supposed to look like. Okay. Right. So we give you the sample to work with. And you can there's two different versions, one for up to 40 employees, one for up to 200 with different departments. Okay. So you can see what each employee costs based on all of their related costs. We have summary and average reports. Okay. So people can use that for crew assignments, or you can figure it out by department, or you can figure it out by employee level. So if maybe you're doing estimates and you don't know exactly which employee you're going to put on a job, but you say, well, on average, I know my framers run me this much. Okay. So even though you got individual people at different rates, you can still get an average. Okay. We have a direct, indirect, and general admin cost summary report. So across your company, you can see things split out that way. And these have all been based on requests of what people have said that they want to see. I didn't come up with all these initially on the front end. Wow. So you saw the example of lost and wasted time. You can drop your own numbers in. Yep. We've got 3 or 4 different ways to fill that in.
For the person that spends 15 minutes a day on his phone, that does that every day for a year, and what's that run, about 10 grand a year? that 15-minute call.
Exactly. Yep. And we give you 17 different ways to use your results to beef up.
That comes to mind when we talk about this kind of stuff too, is when you point this information out to your employees that, hey, that call you just made cost, the company such and such amount of dollars, that, if we're not being profitable on these jobs, if you can bring employees into the conversation and help them understand some of these things, I think it makes for a better employee, because now they know what's happening.
Absolutely. And sometimes if you can even show them what they're really costing the company per year, that makes a huge difference. Yeah. They go, oh, okay.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I'm pretty valuable.
Uh-huh.
All right. And then we give you these techniques. I've run through a few of them today and added the math, but we give you those ways that you can use the information, not just to get better job cost reports, but in so many other ways throughout the company. Okay. We've embedded a user's guide inside the product. You don't have to go scrambling somewhere to go find that manual. It's right there inside the product. Okay. And we have this bonus about how to automatically post the additional labor burden cost, how to use QuickBooks, how to trick QuickBooks into automatically doing those burden calculations, not calculations, but to post the percentages that you figure out so that it will go out and actually allocate out to jobs. So you don't have to do journal entries and so on.
Sure.
Okay. We have various videos, overview videos. We give you PDFs. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each one of these, but we give you a lot of background information. There's a portal. Actually, Dan helped me set this portal up quite some time ago. So he's pretty familiar with the things that are out here.
It's just these tools for managing this kind of stuff are phenomenal. I mean, you've done such a great job on them.
Thank you. Thank you. Lots of good information, videos, etc. We've thrown in a gross profit calculator for you. And it's fairly straightforward and fairly simple, but one of the big things we find that folks have an issue with is their computations of what do I need to charge? The markup versus gross profit calculation. So we've thrown that in there for you. The underbilling calculator I showed you on the front end. We've given you that as one of the bonuses in there. And of course, I said this video, but actually it's a video, not today's video. Okay. But there's a video that I did that's got even more slides and so on in it. So you could go back through it. And that's a part of the product now.
Cool.
So the good news, I'm going to just run through it. It's in Excel. Okay. You don't have to learn any new software. Nothing nearly as complicated as Chief Architect. It's reasonably priced. It runs either $497 or $997, depending on the number of employees. It's not on a subscription basis, so you don't have to keep paying for it over and over again, just one time. And you can update it. We talked about updating as we were going through this, keeping this updated once you get it initially filled out becomes easier and easier. Okay.
Yeah.
You can run those what if scenarios. What if we add benefits or hire or promote or outsource? Okay. And has a lot of other features. So when you get the slides, at any point, you'll see the links as to how to get to this page. Or if you just want to go straight out to our site, buildyournumbers.com, this is how you get there. That's
how you get there. Very nice.
Okay.
Awesome job.
We got two minutes for questions.
Yeah. I don't know. You covered everything pretty clearly, but you guys have any questions, please type them in now. So again, I've watched Diane over the years as this product has evolved, and I don't have employees. So, but if I did, I'd definitely be using this product to make sure that I'm keeping track of my costs involved for each employee, my true costs of each employee, not just what I'm paying them. And it's just really eye-opening as to what's going on here. So, Dan, you got a minute. What kind of final messages do you have for everybody?
Well, I'd say if you can take a few minutes and go out to buildyournumbers.com, that's our website. Okay. And we have a lot of job costing information, a lot of free information out there. And I guess the biggest thing I'd say is job costing is just critical to running a successful company. So that would be my words of wisdom for the day is, keep thinking about job costing. If you're not doing it, keep thinking about it and keep moving in that direction.
Yeah. If you don't know where your dollars are going with every single project that you're doing, how do you know if you've made money on them or not? Which is really what we're in business to do, right? We're in business to make profit on our different projects. And it's really, I've always found remodeling and building to be one of the really toughest businesses out there because there's so many things to keep track of.
Exactly.
It's just like, ugh. So anyway, you do a phenomenal job with all this job costing. That's what Diane's real business is all about, is helping you get your job cost system set up and working the way you need to. And this is one of the tools that you offer to assist in getting those job costs accurate.
Exactly. So. And, I just want to say thank you, Dan. And I appreciate the chance to speak with the people that follow you. And, Dan is so good at what he does. I've sat in on, even though I don't have chief architect, I've sat in on some of his classes, and he's just phenomenal at what he does.
Thanks.
And his training style and the detailed information he provides.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a good time. So, all right,
kudos
everyone.
to what you do. Okay.
Thanks again, Diane. This is awesome. Good stuff. And everybody, you buildyournumbers.com. You can get a hold of Diane there if you want to. So see you, everyone.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.